Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I have Tobit Raphael Capati with me. Hey, Tobit.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, we are on FaceTime because that's the modern world. But I'm proud to say I got to meet Tobit in person at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2019. We had his film Sextpert Advice there, and it brought down the house, I think it's fair to say. I think it was a packed house that night.
Yeah, it was a Saturday evening. It opened the block of shows, and it was just a really awesome audience to have. Always nerve-wracking to get that first laugh, but when you hear them come, it's awesome.
I think they laughed throughout. I recall just laughter throughout. And I think I can't remember the other films. I think we had 4 great films or 3 great films in that block. But I think you started it off so well, and we had a great Q&A, and the audience really appreciated your work. And then you found out probably the next week that the jury appreciated your work because Sextpert Advice won Outstanding Short Film. Yeah. You won as the writer because you wrote, directed, produced, and you were the lead actor of Sextpert Advice. So you won for Outstanding Screenplay. And Eddie Cahill won Best Supporting Actor for acting across you. And by the way, I have something. When we talk about Sextpert Advice, I'll bring up that I almost feel like you needed an acting award too, because I think actually what you did was harder. Eddie's just so charming that it's pretty obvious why the jury favored him. But anyhow, before I'm already talking about Sextpert Advice. And what I have to tell the people before we jump into your interview is that if they want to watch Sextpert Advice, they can watch it in the Discover Indie Film TV series. It's in Season 4, Episode 1. So just go to Amazon Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film. You should watch all 4 seasons if you really want to be a cool person. But if you watch anything, go to Season 4, Episode 1. You've got Tobit's film, Sextpert Advice, and it's followed by a really smart, funny, crazy film called First Dates. So I've learned that every season of the TV series should start with a comedy.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a nice icebreaker.
It is, right? Yeah, I learned when there's a really serious drama, those have to come towards the end of the season, because if you wear out people's emotions as much as we love having our, watching an emotional short, that's when you hit pause and you take a break, and it's like, comedy, you keep going. So But so I've given the intro. That people about your film and that it's in Discover Indie Film. But of course, Discover Indie Film was about getting to know you, the filmmaker, because we were limited to about 15 minutes back in November 2019 before the Earth stopped turning. Yes. So tell me your actual, I believe you told us that night that you started primarily as an actor, but what got you into acting and filmmaking? What were your inspirations?
First I'll go from acting and then I'll go into filmmaking. But just the most basic story where I start off is I started acting in middle school plays. I went to a kindergarten through 8th grade Catholic school. It was primarily 95% children of Filipino immigrants in the Bay Area. So this is South San Francisco, California. And 6th graders through 8th graders were allowed to participate in the screwball comedy spring plays that the principal and was a director of would put on. And that was my entryway into acting, live performance. Live performance before that was pretty much just piano recitals or being an altar boy.
Which is on stage and piano recitals, that's a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah. So I guess I grew up in a very performative my father is a deacon in the Catholic Church, so he's a member of the clergy. He gives a lot of sermons on Sundays, so I grew up in a very presentational, performative. I don't want to say my family's fake, but at least we know how to at least talk in front of people.
I would say you're probably an entertaining family.
Yeah. Well,
I think every religious leader, whether it's a deacon or a mom or a rabbi, deep down they all want to be pop stars.
Yeah. Well, it's the idea that you have something to say, and that you feel you have the means to say it. And I think when I took that feeling with me to the 6th grade school play, it was pretty much just my love for like TV comedy from Nickelodeon and Disney. I grew up in the 90s. I'm a millennial, even though I look like I'm early Gen Z, but I was born in the 80s. And so just this idea of getting laughs and doing physical comedy was really exciting. I had never done anything like that before. And so I took that into high school when I joined the high school's theater company, and I actually started working on real productions like West Side Story or The Crucible, things with weight, and I got to be an old judge. I got to be Chino in West Side Story, and I fell in love with the process of costumes and lights and all the aspects coming together. So I'll just share a little bit about how I got started professionally as an actor. After high school, I was accepted to UCLA's theater, film, and television program. I should say school, because the program was for acting that I attended.
Because UCLA does divide. Yeah, in the television.
Oh, it's
and
a hard
film.
divide.
Yeah,
maybe
it is. I've heard people say the directing class, sometimes it's even hard for them to pull in people from the acting class to act in their films, right?
Yeah. But
it's also prestigious and hard to get into. So I'm giving you a silent golf clap. That you got to be talented and smart to get into that program. Yeah,
it was definitely like one of the biggest signs that I was going on the right path. It's one thing to feel great and love to do what you do, but when other people validate that, when you get those exclusive opportunities that you would only dream about, it really kind of solidifies, I'm doing the right thing. So naturally, I followed that, and what led me to working as a professional actor was I got a manager after theater school, and the biggest project I worked on was the internship in 2013 with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and that's where I learned filmmaking. Talk about first time in front of a camera, and you're up there 3 months working with these A-listers, working under Sean Levy and 21 Laps, and just what's a video village? What's that funny vest the cinematographer has on? So that was what really got me peaked into filmmaking.
Yeah, so there were no commercials or anything first, or no TV spots. You started with a multi-million-dollar A-level studio tentpole kind of film. Because the intern, that's when Vince Vaughn was old.
Yeah. It was definitely a long shot, and I could not believe reality when it happened. But like I said, it really was it was like going into the Willy Wonka factory, you really get to see this is. I grew up watching all of Owen Wilson's movies growing up, Shanghai Noon, and when I first saw him, I truly had a starstruck feeling. So just the idea that I could stand toe-to-toe with this kind of talent, this kind of work in Hollywood, showed me that I had what it takes to make a film. And when the work ran up dry as an actor, that's what started me as a filmmaker, or awakened me into my skills as a filmmaker.
Right, because you had a great experience with that, but then there's always hurdles for an actor, and then there's hurdles for a Filipino actor.
Yeah.
So that's what inspired you to start writing your own material?
Yeah, and it's, just to add another identity label to myself as a queer Filipino actor, just the, kind of coming up just years after Prop 8 in California, which was, very anti-gay marriage. And so kind of coming up in that world and just as American culture was also beginning to open up to the idea of, gay men's stories on mainstream platforms, or, the idea of gay romance being a valid romance to watch, and to also kind of grow with that, falling into my own relationships. And so just this idea that kind of what I was saying with, coming the background I came from with church and performances and performativity is that it came, I don't know, it just kind of came naturally, and that, I realized that I had something to say, or that, it's a voice that if I don't say it, I don't know who else. Maybe Nico Santos, but
there can't be too many voices from the underrepresented communities. There's room.
Yeah.
And I'd add that Sexpert Advice is certainly the story of a young gay man, but it's refreshingly, I don't know, you tell me, it just feels completely natural to me. It doesn't feel like it's entertainment first.
Well, independent film, and especially what I learned taking Sexpert Advice to Outfest, was that there's such a voice and a driving passion and creativity of queer voices that it's just really cool to see that there's an avenue for it, and especially putting myself in a place with my skin color, with my looks, where normally people might associate like a whiter looking gay man, or otherwise things that are just a little bit more familiar to us on network TV, that I could stand in this thing that maybe I would have a hard time auditioning for if it was someone else's production. But the fact that I gave it to myself says, oh yeah, like all the dynamics of myself are also in this role.
Which I'll add. Well, okay, before I praise your performance, was this one of the first things you wrote, or did you write several things? Were you writing in a class? Were you writing for, like in acting, like working it out on stage?
I had started writing since college, in theater company, in extracurricular activities, writing for an Asian American theater company, La Puta Code that Cares at UCLA. Randall Park's a founding member, as well as Michael Galamko, Ali Wong. But those were all about writing your own stories, creating them. And so I've had this knack for at least knowing that I could write. But as an actor, I never connected those pieces of actually reaching out to, professional filmmakers as well, and say, hey, I want to actually make this thing that I wrote, and make it beyond the capacity of just, with a friend shooting on an iPhone,
Yeah, because it is... Well, so now that we're discussing Sexpert Advice, I'll say that I watched it again, and I laughed just as hard as I did the first time, and I've probably seen it, 4 or 5 times by now. And but it truly is. I just want to praise the filmmaking of it, because it's perfect use of the medium. Just the introduction of the first scene, the fact that you're going handheld to make it so personal, your use of music. It's beautifully lit, even though it's a single location film. It looks great. So it's nothing against anyone who I'm not speaking to right now, but I see a lot of films where, I watch like 2,000 films a year that it gets submitted to the festivals, and I see a lot of stuff where it's clearly like the actor just wanted to act and they didn't care about the medium. And Sexpert Advice, oh man, you probably have one of the best scores. If we had a best score category, I think you would have gotten that.
My composer Alex, he was such a joy to work with, such a great guy to talk to, Alex Schenkman, and it's awesome to see the power of music composed for a piece of filmmaking. How much of a difference that makes, how it just breathes with it, and that was the scariest part for me.
Was to
score it,
to score it right, and make sure it played the way. And you had music. You had the idea of having playful music throughout. Yeah, because that perfectly sets the tone, I think.
I told him my inspiration was Tito Puente and a little bit of flamenco guitar. Maybe it's because I just have like these romantic Spanish idealizations, of like sexiness and, passion. Maybe it's because Spain colonized the Philippines. But I really loved the flavor and and I said I was a pianist growing up, and of course going to church too, which music goes hand in hand with whatever I want to say performing, with whatever, you're performing is also, an act of carrying out. So whatever you're carrying out. And so, I want to say thank you for saying that.
Well, and I'll add, it's a romantic film. I think it is romantic in a very modern way. And so, the flamenco and Tito, the Spanish flavored music you're talking about, I think we all can associate with romance.
Yeah. And that's what was really surprising to me, was learning that it's just your entire arsenal of ingredients as a filmmaker is what we've all been exposed to under media. And it's like I didn't have to go learn anything else. I just had to go look inside myself of like, okay, what do I feel from this, and what music gets me in that mood. So music has always been like the rawest, I think, emotional connection as far as like creativity goes. It's always like my way in or something like that.
And I didn't ask about the process. Like, was it a quick write for you? Like this just flowed out of you?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the origins of writing. I had just really been writing for a friend of mine, or even just bringing in scenes for class for acting. I attended Bremen Garcia Braun studio at the time under Steve Braun. And I was getting tired of searching for scenes that I felt didn't really fit me, or, I had to do a lot of bending over backwards just to feel like, okay, and so I wrote this from my sexuality. I wrote this from my queerness. I was partnered with Eddie Cahill that day. Eddie Cahill is an acting classmate in this class with me. And I was in charge of bringing a scene in. And so I knew I wanted to write something for that day. And the only thing that was motivating me to get out of bed was just being horny. So I just imagined I find Eddie very attractive. If I had a scenario like this with him, like, it's your fantasy, like, why? That's what filmmaking is. It's kind of dreaming, and it turns out my mind is a lot hornier than I like to admit. But that comes across in my filmmaking.
I think that's human, by the way.
Yeah.
I think nearly everyone, even the people who are anti-sex, they're anti-sex because they can't deal with the fact that they have a sex drive. Yeah. Everyone, all living things have sex drives. So I praise you for being open and accepting and honest about it.
Yeah. Well, it was such a hit when I brought it to class, and I knew there was a lot of room for creativity with staging it, because how do you bring nudity into a story but not exploit nudity in the filmmaking? And especially, I'm not going to be a first-time filmmaker and start showing I'm not that desperate to move my career along in that way, and not to assign that kind of choice with desperation, but at least that's just not where I was.
I understand. At the at Film Invasion Los Angeles in June, I was talking to a queer filmmaker who has a screenplay, and he said, I had to turn down an offer to actually produce my film because they were demanding a certain number of dick shots. And I said, you know what? That's not this film. Yeah. And I was like, good for you, man. I would have been tempted to show whatever they wanted to show to get the money, but he kept his integrity. Yeah, there's a lot of demands on that.
Yeah. Of course, I as a gay man, I would love to see more male nudity, and just to balance also, what has been so skewed towards female and in the male gaze, but that's another conversation.
Absolutely. That's a conversation I'd love for you to have with me too, because I'm a big proponent. I bore anytime we have male nudity at the festival, I always say, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because men's, I like both things. I love the fact that men get to be attractive for a change, because normally just women are, and then also women are always treated like objects. It's nice to balance that out too. Yeah, I think I know I like male nudity. What am I going to say? I'm a fan.
And also just, from the point of view of the storyline of Sexpert Advice, which is about sending a dick pic, was to have it come from just like a gay man wanting to connect to another gay man in just a real way, and not have it be this thing which can happen, I have heard, in for some straight women, where they're just, receiving unwarranted or unwanted dick pics. And I didn't want that to be that. I wanted this to be almost like a farce, or, just like something that felt, I think of, what is that play with Superman? It's like it's like a revolving stage. It's like one of those, the name escapes me at the moment. But just that old style of how staging creates comedy, how you can have the riskiness of sex comedy, with your physical choices on stage.
For sure. And your film is sexy, and I think because of the performance, particularly your performance, that adds the romanticism. I think, because I think that your character Albert, we can tell. I mean, he does want a physical connection, but I don't know. Am I reading into it that he wants more?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, to speak personally, this is just coming from insecurities of, my inability to reach out to other men in dating, but also just this idea of love, like Eddie and I were talking, and it's like, there's really a lot of love in the story, even though you wouldn't expect there to be love in a story about a guy who, gets advice on how to send a dick pic. But I love heart in art. I love humanity. I love when comedy touches something deeper in you other than just like, hot, good one,
Yeah, you don't have to keep the last one. In fact, I bet one of your favorite moments in your film is when Eddie and Sydney are sitting. I'm sorry, Sydney and Albert are sitting there, and Albert thanks him, and he's like, "Look, it's a job," and then they start talking about the ice cream place, and it's a very human moment between them. Like, they're just kind of bonding and talking and having a nice time. Yeah,
and I really wanted there to be some kind of respite. Because, you throw in a whole bunch of sex, and then you just want to, okay, now let's give you a little palate cleanser,
For sure, which I think makes the ending even better, I would assume.
Yeah. I waited tables at the Improv for a couple of years in the Hollywood Improv, so I was exposed to stand-up comedy and just the idea of rhythm and timing and peaks and valleys. And so just with something that could be considered, my 8-minute set, this Sexpert Advice short having an 8-minute runtime, it's like, okay, these are the peaks and valleys that you want to see from a comedy, or at least that I like to see.
That's an interesting part of your bio that you left out. Working at the Improv, I think, would be very interesting for an actor.
Yeah.
Because it's exposing you to, stand-up is such a, my God, it is such a unique art form, but talk about being adjacent to that level of pressure and performance.
It was such a sidestep to see the world of stand-up comedy up close, to see agents poaching comedians, and then to see, maybe a couple of years later, Gerard Carmichael now has a show with HBO, and it's like, or I think he had it with a network. But to see how, an alternate version of my life, I fell into stand-up comedy, and I love stand-up, even though I don't say it a lot. It did teach me a love for comedy. And
interestingly, at least with Sexpert Advice, in stand-up, it's assumed you've written your own material you're performing, and if you didn't write it yourself, you get burned if anyone finds out. But which is not the case in particularly film acting, say all forms of acting. But yeah, you actually did do that. You wrote your own material and performed it. And actually, that was so. Here comes the compliment I was holding back since the intro, which is when I watch your performance as Albert. So especially watching it today, because after having met you almost 2 years ago and this and that I mean, Albert seems sincerely uncomfortable and surprised, and he's so in the moment. And you wrote this, like for you to be that in the moment and that reactive in the moment with your fellow actor, but you wrote the words. I mean, I think that's a high level of acting that people will miss, right? Because you wrote it, you memorized it, it came from you, and I think there was a lot of subtlety in there that you don't really see, right?
Yeah, thank you. That's such a high compliment to hear as an actor, which is that I believed you when you were saying, I believed it was the first time, I was shooting on a 2-night schedule. I was trying to keep both of those nights under 10 hours. And so I was like, just get the words out. It was, okay. Just advice out there to anybody. If you want to act, direct, and write and produce your first short film, just get help. Get help from somebody else. Just make sure somebody else can have that extra mind on other things, because I'm glad I was able to use the nerves, frustration, and anxiety that I was naturally feeling as a first-time director and producer, having, maybe up to 6 or 7 crew around me listening to my every word and, following direction.
And you're responsible that they get fed. And that there's water and everything. Yeah. That's a lot of pressure. There's a lot on you for that. Although I would assume everyone involved, I'm assuming they, but I'm also assuming that whether your crew was 6, 8, or 10, and there was basically 2 actors, although you bring in an actor at the end as well. But I assume it was a very positive, warm set. Maybe just based on your personality, I'm assuming that, and the material. Who wouldn't have fun making this film?
Oh, yeah. No, the first night I was a bunch of nerves. I was hoping that I was at least... it's like you take a disposable film camera and you're like, I just hope when it comes out, it's what I thought it was. But, I've been in this town for a little while. I've worked, I've learned, and I've been exposed to great talent. And so just to be able to see, even if I don't trust that 100%, that still comes out at the end of the day. Because just like you said, there's a certain amount of care that I took into this, because I was like, this is my baby. Like, I want to make sure my baby doesn't die before, anybody sees it,
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as I assume, you didn't even have to turn to your, DP and say, how was that or anything, because you and Eddie have been doing this, workshopping it even, I assume, in class and stuff. So I'm sure there was a level of confidence with the material. It wasn't like it was happening for the first time on camera.
I'll get into a little bit of like acting nerd stuff, but Eddie and I had maybe worked on like 1 or 2 scenes before that, but mostly just working on repetition exercises, which stems from the Meisner School of Acting. Meisner is all about connecting in the other person, connecting in the external, really just kind of feeding off of what's in the present moment. And Eddie loves to work that way too, and also Eddie is a consummate professional, which is just like what you also need from when you're, I guess I kind of had that guardian angel, a little bit, but definitely something you need when you're experimenting at that level. So I will say that our history just in class and just having an ability to be vulnerable with each other, that was a great place to start working.
For sure. So, and pop question. So 2 nights. So after the first night, did you watch footage overnight or did you just trust it?
I had to go to work at a restaurant the next day.
So you didn't even have a chance.
No. Oh, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't watch all my dailies. But it's a mountain that I had just completed. And so the post-production process was as much as the production process was new for me to take the reins on, the post-production process was entirely new for me, beyond just my ability to tweak on Premiere Pro, my own little short films, to, lead a sound designer, composer, all these things. So, yeah.
So you didn't watch it, and then you just came back, and then the next night you acted again, and you were trusting it.
Yeah. I will say that, especially working with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, just this idea of bringing improvisation into your takes, that was another way of keeping fresh. I knew that I wanted to have a monologue that I wanted to improvise in, and so the monologue where I talk about what the Albert's character wants the Tyler character to do to him, I was like, just speak from your gut, speak from your heart. Like, that's where a lot of my Upright Citizens Brigade training and on-set experience improvising kind of played in, and that's how I like to work.
Which is interesting, because that is a standout scene for sure. And your performance there, I almost mentioned that part, but I didn't know about spoilers. I mean, not that we can really spoil it. You can see this film over and over, and it's not spoiled. Yeah. But that was definitely so in the moment. And now to learn that you made yourself improv that scene.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where your well, maybe you were just doing the character, but it's even romantic. It's definitely much more romantic, the things he says that he wants to do with this other guy. Yeah. It's not just like, I just want to get laid. It's like, I want,
he wants connection, a lot of
tenderness.
Yeah. And
which is, queer cinema doesn't always give us tenderness.
Yeah.
So it's really refreshing.
Yeah. I also recognize that, because comedy is such a delicate art form for any creator, just to have that, to know that, like, I have that under my arsenal, and say, like, and also a queer experience, and also a person of color experience, and so, yeah, it's exciting to bring those in, because, like I said, that's not the average thing that I would go out for out here in Hollywood, even after working and everything,
Everything you said, I'm just nodding like crazy here on FaceTime. Yeah. But also, and then Eddie's performance as Sydney. Sydney is a character we never get to see, because we never get to see the straight white male who's just completely unjudgmental of people who aren't straight white males. Like, how often do we see a guy who he treats his gay clients and his straight clients exactly the same? That's another refreshing thing we never see.
Yeah. It's my way of projecting onto people, like how
what you'd like to see.
Yeah. Just this idea that men can be comfortable with their bodies around each other. I was just having a conversation with my boyfriend, who stars as Tyler in the film, about just the funny dance in locker rooms, just around your body, and about who sees it or who shouldn't or shouldn't see it. And of course, everyone has the right to privacy, but the extra layer of shame or grossness to a penis, And personally, as a gay man, I think penises are beautiful. And so if a man an actor that we've seen, on Friends and on not Law and Order,
CSI. He's got a long ass resume.
Yeah, NCIS. That type of character would be okay with frontal nudity. And would in fact encourage it.
Encourage it, yeah, and just be completely unfazed.
And I wanted I love contrast in comedy, so I wanted that mishmash of the cleanup character, someone you might expect from a thriller or a mafia movie. You know, instead of cleaning up a dead body, it's cleaning up a failed sext. You know,
exactly. It's pulling from that Tarantino world, which is Mr. one White. Of the most. Yeah. It's almost you could almost, hyper. And this is a compliment to it. It is toxic masculinity cinema. Like Quentin is as toxic as you can be on purpose. Yeah. And I would even defend, I'm with whatever. I won't get into it, but but no, yeah,
exactly. And so to know that at a point in culture and history where a lot of men feel they're being turned against, is that there are so many other expressions of what a man is that can be brought into expression and art and creativity and can grow, what it is to be a man, to expand beyond that toxicity.
For sure. And that you can be a masculine, handsome, straight dude and have no problem at all helping another guy take a picture of his dick.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you less of a man, does it? No, it makes you even more appealing, if you ask me. But
yeah, and there's a lot of people in the world who would think that very hot. So it's like I also love to hear from women, how much they like non-gay men, how much they like the work in Sextpert advice. So
for sure, yeah, I'm sure women find it. Probably because of the different dynamic that you brought up, that they deal with dick pics, which is solicited is great and unsolicited should be banned.
Yeah.
But yeah, when a woman asks for one, they often, it's a positive thing. And so it's such a positive message.
It was cool moment. To take the film to Outfest and to see people relate to it who, identify as trans, identify as other identities than just a gay man, and to say, I go through the same thing. And I'm like, wow, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. Yeah. Lesbian community would everyone can identify with us because we live with these camera phones now.
Yeah. And there's a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. Everyone. Yeah. Everyone deals with this horrible thing of taking a photo and sharing it. I mean, it's such a new thing in the world.
Even just of your face, it's like, oh, that angle's not good enough. Oh, this outfit's the light, and so just to live in this fantasy of all of your insecurities being taken care of and it working out in the end,
working out very nicely.
Yeah,
it's great. Well, so I don't know. I know you did Outfest, and that's summertime, right? But did you have a nice festival run before COVID slapped us down?
Oh yeah, I got to play at Outfest Fusion. We also opened the first night of Outfest Fusion 2020, and that was right before the pandemic happened. So just to get this taste of this awesome festival, and to make these connections on a queer of color level, because Outfest Fusion is their BIPOC festival, and so to suddenly be so inspired to say oh yes, let's get busy, and then all of a sudden the world was like no. So it definitely transitioned it to the online world. Of course, it was able to play Outfest that summer, and then go as far as Australia, across the United States, other festivals, and I'm just happy of the run it had, and happy to see that audiences are there. That audiences exist in outside of just an in-person event or festival.
Yeah. And, your film is, besides the humor and the length is perfect for festivals, I would have, I guess I'm fishing here, but did you happen to end up in any festivals that you wouldn't have expected? Anywhere where we would consider not queer friendly or something? You know, like whether
I don't know. I didn't take it so far as non-queer festivals after that, and then also to kind of go back to the drawing board, because I didn't really. I knew I wanted to take it to festivals, but really, as let this be such a like getting my feet wet. You know,
sure.
Because
I'm very happy that you chose Sherman Oaks. I'm grateful that Sherman Oaks got it.
It was an awesome local, such a loving audience, and the films were diverse. And I still think about, I think it's called The Teacher. It closed the block that Sextpert was on, and the cinematography in that short film is just mind blowing.
Well, that was The Teacher was the amazing film that the government of China built to Hollywood. Some city in China is now got sounds, everything you need to make a film. And they had this commercial director from LA shoot a 15-minute insane action-packed remarkable
film. It played the
film.
same night, and so it was just awesome to see, to see all of us together, all the different types of filmmakers in that block. And I love the diversity of film in festivals.
Actually, that's one of our missions. It's part of our mission statement is we would never do a queer block, an African American block, and this block. We want everyone together. Yeah. We don't feel that anyone should be put in their own little corner. Film is film. That's it's an idealistic festival.
Yeah. Labels are convenient, but they can also be really restricting, and so I love that. And that in some stores, film is just a genre itself.
Yeah, it is. Believe me, I love nothing more than everyone represented, and then you have a horror film and a comedy and a tearjerker, and they all play well, and then something. Some art house crazy experimental thing that I love all of it playing together,
and so it's nice to know that that's where I come from as a filmmaker, is like a comedic sense. And I just wanted to talk a little bit too about just my background as a theater, because I know I talked about my background a little bit with stand up, but also just someone in theater to know just the idea of how much staging and pictures, that's all filmmaking is. It's just who are we putting on the screen, and what does it look like from the first frame, and what do we get from that? And that was just really exciting to me. So.
And actually, it was interesting for me to hear your history, because even back in middle school, your middle school focused on comedy.
Yeah. My first character I ever played, I had no lines. I was up on stage to just sit there and then flop over and reveal a knife in my back. So I just played a dead person. But it taught me physical comedy.
You got to laugh every time.
We did that 4 times, and it got to laugh it's so dumb, the power of Buster Keaton still survives to this day, just how effective the body is at telling a story. And so to see that as an actor in class, I know you talked a little bit before about not having a big budget or not using a lot of locations. As an actor, just in classrooms, you see the power of acting to take you there, and you don't even need all of that. And that's what I want to see more of with productions being so expensive, or things being so hyper real in Hollywood, trying to match reality as much as possible. I love the idea of a stripped down production, or I love the idea of things being on a studio set again, or a studio lot,
You'll love the story. I'll share it very quickly. There's a film called Shark Week that's in the Discovery Indie Film TV series. And Shark Week is a brother and sister having this amazing. They performed it for about a year on stage at the Beverly Playhouse, and then they finally just shot it. And they went to a festival. I don't even remember it might have been Newport or something. And they were in a block with something that had several $100,000 budget and helicopters and shit and VFX. and they overheard the director of the other film say, "Oh no, the director of the huge film said during his Q&A, well, I mean, you saw Shark Week. The most important production value is acting."
Yes.
If you have crappy acting surrounded by all this money, you have a crappy film.
And that's my experience as an actor watching things sometimes, is that I love simple acting. I love acting that just is like, let's just be ourselves. Let's just, let's bring the hardest person to bring onto a camera, which is just like the fullness of just who you are, all the different faces of that. And it's so effective. It's so effective for someone just to be human. There's a acting teacher, Uta Hagen, and she was like, I refuse to believe that a cat on stage being itself will be more interesting than a human. It's like, but sometimes you'd rather watch a cat on stage than someone performing a monologue for the how manyth night, because it feels a little bit overdone. But yeah, acting is, I believe every human acts every single moment of their life. And I think that we translate that art and that truth through film. And that's what people like, just what you said, like acting tells a story, and just to see yourself in so many different ways, as a viewer.
Well, so you're talking about, so what was it like during lockdown last year? And I think we're at a year and a half still, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you been doing Zoom classes? Have you been writing a lot? Have you? Did you shoot anything? Maybe
I did. I will say I shot. Yeah. I'll say that I'm learning how I adapt as a creative to external forces. When the world shut down, I used that as an opportunity to learn a little bit of 3D animation. Because, like I mentioned, growing up with Disney and Nickelodeon, there was a lot of animation I was exposed to. And so getting to at least get a taste of that as well as a filmmaker. I made a donut. There's like a Blender program on YouTube. They teach you how to make a donut. So I made a donut. I didn't finish the whole thing, but I also have picked up writing a lot of scripts and not finished writing a lot of those scripts. But continuing to foster them, grow them, think of them as things you don't just, I finished that, now I'm done. But this is a piece that I'm continually working on. And also the idea that work grows with you, and that life also is a teacher for your creativity. So just on the personal side, having to deal with losses in my family in the pandemic, and getting to spend a lot of time back in the Bay Area with my family, taking care of my family, using that as a time to absorb and to be a sponge, and to see how much I'm informed by my Filipino immigrant background, to see how much to absorb what I see, and then know what I want to put out there, know what I want to then see out on the big, how I want to see that on the big screen. And then there are 1-minute short films that I've submitted to Outfests festivals. One a comedy, another a drama in black and white with no dialogue. So just really getting to try something new every time I make something. To not put a lot of pressure on myself to make it a career or make it like my breadwinner, because I've certainly learned how to do that as an actor. And I will say that right now filmmaking, there's a lot of space around it right now, but there's still a lot of love and a great desire to see the stories that I care about put out there.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I think this has been a great chat.
Oh,
I've really enjoyed hearing everything. I think we're at almost an hour, so I was going to throw it to you if you had any social media handle or anything you want people to look up to check out more of your work. I don't know if these 1-minute things are viewable yet, but
I just have to get the ball rolling and press upload. But, you know, sometimes the simplest tasks, we just have to pinprick ourselves to get to them, you know, like scheduling.
I understand more. I didn't, I think over a year I was there. I'm stumbling over my words because I'm telling myself I shouldn't admit this, but I had some podcasts recorded that took me over 1 year to release because I think you and I had similar years. I had a lot of losses during lockdown, and I spoke at a couple funerals, and I was just like, I'm just not gonna deal with it. I'm just not, and I just couldn't. Simplest thing in the world would be to open up the GarageBand file and finish it up and put it up, and instead, it just sat dormant for a year.
And it's very humbling, and it reminds you that you're human first. You know, you're a human that film makes or, you know, fosters creativity, and to be reminded of that preciousness at this time, you know, and you know, it really does come back into the work, and the work has a way of not being done with you. You know.
Yeah. And once you forgive yourself for the delay, and I like what you said. We are actually allowed to be human. Yeah. We don't have to be perfect, you know, because actually you can't be.
And, you know, I imagine too, like I haven't been professionally working during the pandemic, but I imagine that it also brings its own set of stresses and demands that are present now in this time that wasn't there a year and a half ago, you know. And I think you don't even have to be a filmmaker to feel that. You know, you can just, whatever job you're working, you know, there's some kind of stress that just this time it has on us. And so just learning to have a appreciation for just the simple act of creating, whether that's cooking or playing on the piano, or even just jotting a note down on a script that I have.
By the way, it took me till now when you mentioned the piano, and I remember you mentioning piano recitals. Another reason why you paid attention to music as a first-time filmmaker. I can name 3 or 4 filmmakers who their second or third film they finally addressed sound and music, because it's something a lot of people skip. But you have a musical background, which is another reason why your script is so good and acting is so good, because music teaches a rhythm and a timing. And comedy has a rhythm and a timing. Yeah. I'm seeing all the parts of...
I'm seeing it too. I'm like...
Tobit Raphael Capati. It's all coming together, all the different parts. I just knocked over a wire female body. Oh, well.
Oh, it's okay. You were making a big circle, so it's all coming together.
I was talking with my hands, which is a Middle Eastern thing, but
no, I appreciate that. Once again, like, it is really interesting to see the reflection of yourself in your filmmaking, you know, and to take things for granted. You know, I just think, I just gotta get music, you know, like, and that's just how my brain works. But to see it from the outside, to say like, you know, I really care about the senses in filmmaking, you know. How do we inspire touch, even though you can't touch, and you know, and how does filmmaking appeal to everything that your body already does naturally, but make it create something in your mind that's not there, you know. I spoke about improv, and I just think it's just a feeling, you know, like music's a feeling, comedy is a feeling, and rhythm and timing is a feeling. And with that, you know, we have to make room for it, you know, listen, you know. Like I said, it was a great help for my composer, because I was like nitpicking and making little things. I was like, I don't know, but I love scores in movies. Like, I think about Minari, and I'm like, that score is just so beautiful. Just like and unexpected scores too. I really like.
Yeah, I think that's another thing I notice getting to meet so many filmmakers is a lot of filmmakers listen to scores. Yeah. It's gotten. I don't know what it's like finding them now because actually, because you used to just pick up the album or the CD, and now I don't know if iTunes have all the scores.
You just find where it's streaming and put it on in the background while you're
right. That works.
Or
how smart.
Play your screeners if you didn't destroy them yet.
Excellent. All right. Well, is there? Here, I'll wrap this up.
My ads.
Yes, your ads.
Tobit Raphael Capati, so Tobrafcap, TOBRAPHCAP. On Twitter, Instagram. I don't know the status with my TikTok. I haven't visited it in a while. So don't go there. But that's a nice place to reach me. I have a website as well, www.tobrafcap.com. You can look at nice pictures of my face or videos of me talking. Read words I've written about myself. Reach out to me if you want to say hi.
And he's a good writer. So
yes, I will fret over a response for a good 15 minutes.
Yes, the favorite quote, Mark Twain, right? If I had more time, this letter would be shorter.
I love that.
All right, well, now I will ramble off a bunch of things, but first of all, if you're listening, you should absolutely watch Tobit's film Sextpert Advice in the Discovery Indie Film TV series. So any way you can get to Amazon Prime Video, hopefully it's on a nice big TV with a Prime app built in so that it's not on a computer, but watch it there. Go to Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film, and it starts off Season 4, Episode 1. And I'll mention that please give the series 5 stars. It deserves it. All the films are wonderful, eclectic. They're handpicked from the festival circuit. And while I'm talking about 5 stars, however you listen to this podcast, give it 5 stars. Subscribe, give 5 stars. You should give 5 stars all over the place. This is a kind of Yelp-driven world, so let's be generous with our stars.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Right, like, content, yes, and if you want to learn more about this podcast or its accompanying TV series, go to discoverindiefilm.com. And on all the social media, is at DIF Wins. DIF for Discover Indie Film, wins because that's the handle that won. There was a poll. And I mentioned that Sextpert Advice played at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2019. That festival happens every November. In fact, we are back in the theater in November of this year for a full week. And you can learn more about that festival if you go to ShermanOaksFF.com. And it's on social media or at ShermanOaksFF. And it does have a sister festival every June, Film Invasion Los Angeles. That's FilmInvasionLA.com. And it's at Film Invasion LA on social media. And I'm going to thank Tobit for doing this interview.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And the people, if you listen to the next podcast after this one, it'll come out a day later, whenever this comes out. But I believe I'm not going to try to remember the date. But I know what it is. But it'll be Tobit answering the 4 questions, which are his favorite films and things like that. So it's a fun movie list of what inspires this actor, writer, director,
producer, human
pianist. Yes. Yeah. And so that should be fun. And thank you. And thanks to everyone who listened.
Take care.